Karen demands I move my car from my driveway. Ends up with a fine instead. Before I tell you this story, let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I had just pulled into my driveway after a long day at work. I grabbed my bag, locked the car, and headed inside. Barely 5 minutes passed before a loud, rapid knock echoed through the house. I sighed. Only one person in the neighborhood knocked like that. Opening the door, I was met with Karen, arms crossed, foot tapping, the usual scowl on her face.
You need to move your car.
She demanded without so much as a hello. I blinked. Excuse me?
My guests are coming over and they need a place to park. Your driveway is the most convenient spot.
I stared at her. You do realize this is my driveway, right? She let out an exaggerated sigh.
Yes, but it's just for a few hours. You can park on the street like everyone else.
It is when it's my property, I replied, crossing my arms. If your guests need parking, they can find a spot elsewhere. Her face twisted in frustration.
This is why no one in the neighborhood likes you. You're so selfish. This is a community.
I let out a short laugh. Community? You mean the same community where you call the HOA over every little thing? My lawn, my fence, my mailbox? She scoffed, pulling out her phone.
If you don't move it, I'll report you.
I raised an eyebrow. Report me? For parking in my own driveway? She hesitated, then switched tactics.
Fine, I'll call the police. I'll say you're blocking access.
Blocking access to what? My own house? She didn't answer, just started dialing. I stood there, arms crossed, waiting. 15 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. The officer barely had time to step out before Karen rushed over, waving her hands dramatically.
This man is blocking my guests from parking. He's being completely unreasonable.
The cop glanced at me, then at my car, then back at Karen. Ma'am, this is his property.
But it's just for a few hours.
The officer sighed. Unless he's violating a law, which he isn't, he doesn't have to move his car. Karen's face turned red. She opened her mouth to argue, but the officer held up a hand. Ma'am, are you aware that calling emergency services for non-emergencies is a violation? She froze.
What?
You knowingly made a false report over a civil dispute. That's an offense. He pulled out his notepad. I'm issuing you a citation for misuse of emergency services. Her jaw dropped. The officer tore off the ticket and handed it to her. $500 fine. Next time, don't waste police resources over a parking space, I smirked.
You can't be serious.
Looks like I'm legally allowed to park in my own driveway. Who would have thought? Karen stood there, fuming, staring at the fine in her hands. Without another word, she stomped away. I shut the door, shaking my head. Just another day in the neighborhood.